Hi all, I've lurked here from time to time and recently posted this in /the girl survival guide and got a lot of encouragement to post it here as well. I edited a little to add detail now that I'm not weeping into a glass of bourbon while I'm typing about it. It may seem ridiculous, but writing about it is making it somewhat easier to deal with. Originally posted May 21st, 2018. I met a guy this weekend. We were at the same restaurant. He was with a wedding party, I was with family. Not connected to the wedding or couple in any way, just happened to be at the same restaurant where the wedding reception was being hosted. He was polite and respectful and offered me his number. I took it and decided to text him. We texted for a day or so and then made arrangements to get together for coffee. We got together in the middle of the day at a public place. I drove myself. I texted a friend and told her where I'd be and the guy's name. I figured I was being overly cautious. The first 3/4 of the conversation was normal enough. We talked about work, schooling, basketball, etc. It turned out he was a lot younger than I thought he was. He's 22, I'm 35. He went from being kind of shy and very respectful to telling me a story about how the night after the wedding he came home and people were being crazy. I asked him what he meant and then he elaborated to tell me that he had walked into his bedroom and lesbian girls I know were having sex on my bed, but he was a gentleman and didn't stick around to watch, and then locked eyes and asked, "Have you ever been in that kind of situation before?" I said, "Well, I've lived in apartments so I've heard people sometimes." And he pushed further and asked, "No, but have you ever walked in on something like that?" I said, "No, that's a weird story to tell someone you just met," and changed the subject. He talked about himself a lot. He did ask me questions, but would interrupt me when I tried to answer and continue to talk about himself. Something felt odd. He was not acting like he was the night I met him. He leaned in over the table a lot and made a noticeable effort to lock eyes with me. I like eye contact, but it felt more like a stare down after a while. I could feel myself moving away the further he leaned in. He started to talk about how he used to pick up girls, but he doesn't do that anymore because he realized that the girls he picked up at bars were probably whores who went there every weekend. Then he wanted to know if I drank, smoked, did drugs, did I ever party, where did I party, where did I like to go out to, do I see other men, etc., etc. Almost no pauses, one question after the other. We talked for a few minutes more and he looked at his phone and said, "The game I wanted to watch is going to start soon. Do you want to get out of here?" Turns out there was a basketball game on and he wanted to come back to his place to watch it. I said no thanks, we just met so I'm not comfortable with that. But maybe we can talk again soon. His face sort of changed and he said, "I'm sorry, but I really thought you were going to come back with me." I told him I wasn't sure how he got that impression. I had not at any point said I would do that. He kept asking me to come back to his place and I kept saying no. He kept asking me why not. I kept saying, "I just met you. I'm not comfortable going back to your house." He said, "Fine, let's go to the park then." Red flags and alarm bells were going off, so I said, "No, thanks. I'm not interested." He basically begged and said he even skipped the game if I wanted him to. I said no, just go home, we just met for coffee, it's not a big deal if we can't take it further today. He then asked me to take a walk in the field behind the coffee shop, looked at the ground and literally said, "I'll do anything you want, just don't leave." I said again I wasn't gonna go anywhere else with him that day, please just respect that, we'll talk later. I got into my car, and as he was pulling away he yelled out his car window at me, "I'm going to do everything I can to change your mind. Come over." I sat and watched him leave because things just felt weird. I drove home and my phone was blowing up the whole time. He was texting and calling, saying he was home and I should come over. Then he sent me a video of himself watching basketball on his couch alone. He started sending me messages saying he could see a future with me, that I was the most beautiful woman he'd ever met. Like, it was horrible for such a beautiful woman to be single, and that he, quote, liked our chances to be together. The entire coffee date was 40 minutes max. He continues to ask me to come over. I said I was happy to meet him for coffee, but I told him I wasn't gonna come over before I left and was not gonna go back on what I said. Then, the calls really started. 7:55, 8 o'clock, 8:02, 8:07, 8:11. He called and called over and over for the next several hours. I texted him after the first couple calls. He had sent me another text saying how beautiful, perfect I was and he wanted to date and travel together. and all I could think to say was, "I'm sorry, I don't feel the same way about you that you seem to feel about me. I wish you well, take care." He said he didn't understand. Did that mean I didn't want to see him again? So I replied with, "I'm sorry for not being clear. No, I don't want to see you again. I'm sorry, I wish you well. Goodbye." The calls and texts kept coming. I told him one time to please stop. I had to turn off my phone, it kept vibrating so much. The texts were all about, "What did I do wrong? Why don't you tell me so I can fix it and make this work between us? I am really a great guy and I like you so much. You owe it to me to tell me. If you tell me then I'll stop bothering you, but you have to tell me." I blocked his number. But my phone still logs call attempts from blocked numbers, so I could see he was still calling all night until 2 a.m. He called a few more times this morning and again this afternoon. I called my phone company this morning to check, and turns out he had sent me over 200 text messages in that one day. That was the tipping point, and I decided to go to the police station and at least talk to them and possibly report it as suspicious behavior or harassment. All I had was his first name, which I'm pretty sure was a nickname, and a phone number. The cops were really nice and took down all the info. He had never threatened me, but I had told him to stop and he wouldn't. They said that he was enough to be concerned. I showed them texts and the timing of the calls, and they said it was definitely looked like obsessive and unstable behavior, and it was good that I came in, even just to put it on record in case things got worse. I felt so bad for even going there, like it was stupid to have even gone to meet him, but I've been on lots of coffee dates and no one has ever done this kind of thing before. After I left the station, I got home and checked my phone, and I had 3 voicemails from unknown numbers. And it was him pleading for me to call him and tell him how to make it right. He doesn't understand why I blocked him. Did he message me too much? Was it a bad move to call me 80 times in the night? Why wouldn't I just talk to him? I recorded the voicemails and sent them in to the police, along with screenshots of the messages and logs from my phone company. Now I'm low-key terrified of what will happen next. Will the cops call him? If they do, will it make him mad? I'm pretty sure I didn't tell him anything about the area of the city I live in or where I work, and all he had was my phone number, no Facebook or WhatsApp or other socials. I considered changing my cell phone number, but I'm also hoping that he'll get to the point after a few days of silence and just give up. I'm so shocked I don't even know what to do next. Update, May 22nd, 2018. He's been texting and calling me from random numbers all day. I've been taking screenshots and sending them in to the police with my report number. It's been a long, exhausting day. I really want to change my number, but he keeps sending me stuff and I feel like it might be helpful to the police to figure out who he actually is. I've informed my family, friends, employer, cell phone provider, and building caretaker about this crazy pants and given everyone a description. I went out and bought 100+ decibel alarms with windows and doors in my apartment and installed them. I am in Canada, so I can't legally carry mace, but I'm looking for alternatives. Mega update. Today he wrote me a very long-winded message, asking for another chance and begging forgiveness. He said I was just overly excited to meet such a beautiful and well-endowed woman, and that he needed just one chance to show you my true birth, pleading for me to reply and come meet him. And he signed his name at the bottom. I had heard it slightly wrong and didn't have the right spelling in my phone. I went on Facebook and found his profile. He had 0 security settings. He's not friends with anyone I know. I copied that link and sent it off to the cops. I am torn between really hoping they can talk some sense into him and being terrified that if the police confront him that he will become even crazier. I would have slept easier if I'd changed my number right away, but I might never have gotten his real name and profile if I had. I doubt the cops will do much until he starts threatening me. Now I'm torn. Do I change it and sleep better at night, or let him keep screaming into the silence while I collect more evidence? Is it worth it? I keep thinking, all he has is my number. Update, May 28th, 2018. The last contact I had from my coffee date was 4-ish days ago, when he called me at 12:56 a.m. on the 24th. He been texting me from the same number a few days earlier, when he sent me the charming message about me being so well endowed, so I'm pretty sure it was him. I'm admittedly feeling a little burnt out. I'm taking tomorrow off work to try and chill out. There's been a lot to handle along with work and life in general. I haven't really heard from the cops. I've gone back a couple confirmations that they've added my screen caps and voicemail recordings to the file, but nothing else. He hasn't been threatening me and his enthusiasm seems to be dying down, so I doubt I'll hear much unless things change. Here's hoping there are more reasons for the police to become more involved than just saying, thanks for the info, you've added it to your file. They have his names, pic, and Facebook profile. I've blocked him on Facebook and hidden all my profile pics. I haven't gotten any friend requests on any of my social medias. I'm being cautious when I go out. The alarms are helpful, both magnetic and glass break ones have been installed. At least if this dumb kid managed to figure out where I live and tried to get in, I would hear something and be able to get the fuck out. I slashed a hammer between my headboard and my mattress. It feels gross every time I get into bed and hear it tap lightly against the wall, but I'm glad it's there. Thanks for the concern. Everyone, I'm safe. Things are calming down. He knows how to reach me. I know how to send screen caps to the cops. That's about where our relationship is at right now. Update. March 17th, 2020. I haven't looked at this account since my last update, and now that most of the world is under quarantine, it occurred to me to sign in and take a look. First of all, many thanks to everyone who reached out to see if I'm okay. I'm totally okay. At the time I was terribly freaked out and just wanted to not think about this whole thing anymore. I hope no one worried too much, and I'm sincerely sorry if you did. I'm glad that I made the initial post because I was so overwhelmed it was really difficult to work through. Things are 100% better now, so thank you all for the support. I had a few weeks of silence after the last update, and then I got 2 or 3 calls from an odd number, a landline that I could do a reverse 411 lookup on. The address was from the area around the coffee shop where we met, and I recalled that he had told me that he lived a couple blocks over while he was trying to get me back to come over to his basement. I sent the screenshot of the calls and the address of the police email I had been given and made the choice to change my phone number. It was a giant PITA, but I absolutely slept better. I have been back to the restaurant twice and never saw him, and I'm never in the area where we met in the coffee. It still makes me nervous if I see someone who looks like him, but I try to remind myself that the way he acted means he would latch on with a death grip to anyone who gave him the time of day, so he's likely set his sights elsewhere now, which is, in its own way, kind of terrifying. I hope he figures this shit out and that other women he encounters get treated better than I did. I hope you're all well and staying safe inside, and safe hearts. Some woman stood in my flat, right next to the shower curtain. This happened a few years ago, in my old one-person flat. I had a strange feeling that something wasn't right for a few days, like I was sure that food in the fridge was less than I put back the last time. I found pillows from my couch on the floor, stuff like that. I lived alone back then, so there wasn't anyone else with access to my flat. Or so I thought. Well, one night I woke up around 1 in the morning, sweating, and even though I don't remember, was sure I woke from a nightmare. Since I was drenched in sweat, I decided to take a shower, so I put my phone up in the bathroom for music, turned on the water, and enjoyed my shower. A few minutes in, I heard the door move. I never close it, but it still never moves. I took a look at the shower curtain and saw a shadow against it, and a look at my phone confirmed someone was there, since I could clearly see a reflection on my screen that showed someone standing next to the shower curtain. It took me a lot not to scream and to keep acting like I didn't notice anything, while silently taking the shower head off the hold in and turning the water all the way to hot. I'm still kind of impressed of that quick thinking. Our water got really hot when you cranked it all the way to hot, and a few seconds later steam was rising, and the water hurt my feet flowing to the drain. I turned around, ripped the shower curtain open, and it held the shower head right at the person behind it. It was a woman who screamed in pain. I whacked her in the face with the shower head and jumped out of the shower and ran to the door, taking the key out of the lock and locking it closed behind me. A little later she started to bang on the door, but the door didn't give, thank God for German quality work. I called the cops and went to the kitchen to get my big kitchen knife just for safety. I felt like my throat was closing up when I saw it missing, and realized there's only one place where it could possibly be right now. The police came and arrested the woman who turned out to have been the former person living in the flat and was evicted after not paying rent. Seems she made a copy of the key and came into the flat when I was at work and sometimes at night. It's possible that what woke me up in the first place was her, and honestly, I don't even want to think about that. Ever since then, I always insist that the locks are changed when I move into a new place. Edit, since a lot of people ask, I found the knife later in the bathroom, so she definitely brought it with her, and either the police disarmed her or she dropped it herself at any point. I accidentally discovered an online shrine. I recently received a friend request that reminded me of the story, so I'm gonna share it here. This happened after I went to university, so I was 18. I made an effort to make friends after I moved onto campus and ended up with a few groups to hang out with, including a new girlfriend and plenty of people from my classes that I liked well enough. There was one class before lunch where it was traditional for people to go to the cafeteria afterwards to eat in pairs or threes. I wasn't very discerning about who I'd have lunch with because I got on fine with most people from the class, and we are all trying to make an effort to be social. So when one girl, Lily, asked if I wanted to eat lunch together after class, I didn't have any reason not to go. We talked about school and that kind of thing, nothing noteworthy, but she did ask me to get lunch with her again the next week. It became a pattern, and there wasn't exactly a way to start saying no suddenly. It was fine, but it did mean I lost the chance to eat lunch with anyone else on those days. In hindsight, I suppose that was the point. One day in class, I asked someone if I could add them on social media. This happened in front of Lily. I saw her face jerk towards me from a couple of seats over. It was such a sharp reaction that it was hard to ignore, and I still remember it. By the time I got home later that day, Lily had sent me a friend request. No friends in common. Don't know how she knew my last name. I was a bit surprised, but I guess she just dug through the university's social media pages and found me through there. It gave me a bad feeling, but surely it was fine. She ended up messaging me a lot and commenting on anything I posted. I told myself that she was just awkward, and we became friends, if not close. I'd known worse people. She still always got me to go eat lunch with her after our one shared class. Other than that, we rarely spent time together in person. I saw her around sometimes, but I never went out of my way to hang out with her, so it was mostly online messaging and seeing each other in group settings. Coincidentally, my girlfriend was also called Lily. This was something that clearly bothered Lily, my girlfriend, who couldn't have found it less interesting as a common name. She occasionally hinted that she wanted my girlfriend to pick a different name or joked about her not suiting it. She clearly didn't like my girlfriend at all, and I had no idea why. It was hard to ignore by this point. Lily was starting to unsubtly hint that she had a crush on me. I tried not to address it because what was I gonna say? I've never known what to do when a friend makes a pass at me. I was also not interested in the least, even ignoring the weird stuff she pulled. Lily was not my type at all. She tended to dress and act in a way somewhere between a 50s housewife and one of those adults who is still obsessed with Disney princesses, if you can picture that. Things took an uncomfortable turn on the day of our last shared class of the year. Instead of asking me to lunch like she usually did, Lily asked if I'd go for a walk with her. Again, I didn't exactly know how to refuse, so I said, all right. Our campus was bordered by a large patch of woodland. Lily led me into the woods, and the sounds of our fellow students slowly faded away. She sat down on the log and I joined her. She started talking about how she was going to miss me over the summer. I tried plus-adding her, but I didn't want to be there, especially because she seemed almost on the verge of tears. I think I tried to make an excuse about having plans with my girlfriend, but before I could leave, Lily chose to kiss me without warning. It was uncomfortable to say the least. I got out of there and was happy to think I wouldn't see her for a while. I came back to university after the summer, moving into a house with my friends. Without going off topic, there was some serious issues in my friend group. A lot of petty arguing, and worse, I broke up with my girlfriend around the start of the school year as well, and basically the whole mess made me recontextualize things with Lily because it suddenly didn't seem as bad. That said, I didn't want to be alone with her. We mostly talked online. She was still constantly messaging me after all. One upside of everything was that I was started dating a boy. Lily was not pleased to hear the news. I think she hoped to sneak in after I broke up with my girlfriend, but as I said before, that was never going to happen. There wasn't a big gap between my breakup and this new relationship, so she must have thought that she missed her chance to be with me. This is where the story gets bad. At this time I was fairly active on Tumblr. I occasionally talked about my life and mostly reblogged photos and stuff. I was on there one day when something odd happened. One of the blogs I followed had received an ask with some phrases I recognized. It took a second to register that it was taken from my About page. That made me freeze. I read the message properly. Someone was asking this completely random person to analyze a section of text from my page, asking for their opinion on the type of person who would write it. I cannot stress how messed up it was to see people talking about me like I was a character in a book. They were trying to study. The reply was basically, I don't know, sorry. But the important thing was that the question had been anonymous. It linked to someone's blog. Obviously I wanted to know who had taken such a bizarre interest in me. As far as I knew, no one in real life other than my boyfriend knew about my page. Well, no prizes for guessing who was behind it. What I found was like a shrine. She was using a fake name, but I recognized Lily all over that thing. It was all this cutesy pink and red page. There are a few posts about her interest, but most of the content was focused on her primary interest, me. Most of the posts were about me. There were accounts of things I'd done recently. He told me about such and such. He went to a nightclub recently, etc. As well as references to things from as far back as I'd known her. It was clear she'd been keeping tabs on me both online and offline, gathering up every scrap of information she could about my life, and hoarding it here in her collection. She talked about us eating lunch together and how special our dates had been to her, as if it was anything more than acquaintances getting food after class. She talked about the time she had forcibly kissed me in the woods, but she wrote it as if it had been mutual. She quoted lyrics from my favorite song and talked about how she'd always been there for me, no matter who else came into my life. Lots of references to loving me just the way he is, which answered another mystery about an anonymous love letter I'd received earlier that year with the same wording. It got worse. There were a lot of posts about my boyfriend as well. Those weren't so nice. They got vicious, talking about how he didn't deserve me. He didn't know what he had. If she was with me, she'd be jealous of anyone else who came near me, so my boyfriend not being a jealous person meant he didn't love me. It was angry and hateful. I didn't like it to think about that sort of person who could write so obsessively being fixated on me. One thing that didn't make sense at first was that the blog also made plenty of references to Lily's best friend, Stephen. She had never mentioned this person to me. Her post talked a lot about Stephen and how a great friend he was, and how much fun they had together, how he looked out for her, etc. I was trying to work out whether this was an online friend when one specific post made it all click. She had posted a photo and captioned it, "Stephen sent this to me. He knew I'd like it and love it," or something like that. The problem was the post was taken from my own page. I hadn't sent it to her. She took it from my page and then claimed his fictional best friend or hers shared it with her. Because in her head she'd split me into two people. In her messed up fantasy life I was both the perfect best friend who was always looking out for her, and her soulmate who was bound to end up with her when I finally got over my sweet, kind boyfriend and all the other easy girls I hung out with. That she made dozens of posts complaining about. Who was she complaining to? Oh, Lily had an audience. She asked open questions about me and her relationship with me and got messages back from her followers, people who took what she said at face value. I saw a bunch of random people agreeing with the stalker that my boyfriend didn't deserve me and we were bound to break up soon, so I could be with Lily, the person I was clearly supposed to be with. She had this fake fan fiction version of my life up for anyone to share their opinion on, and she'd made herself out to be the hero of it all. I went maybe a month back into the page history. I'd not looked at everything that was there. It was too much, so I'm not sure how long this had been going on. I sent Lily a message confronting her about the blog. She said nothing, and I cannot stress how weird it was to have found pages and pages dedicated to me, with her talking about how she was in love with me and would make sure we ended up together, slamming my boyfriend and building a fantasy life with two different versions of me in it that she clearly believed to be real, then acting like it hadn't happened. She said nothing. She didn't address it. She just changed the subject even after I pushed, and it was like she hasn't even registered what I said. I've never seen anything else like it. She deleted the page, of course, or at least changed the name and hid it, so I never found it again. It wasn't the end though. I wasn't going to hang out with her anymore, but we were still shoved together in classes, and she had actually started to kind of scare me with what she might do next. Some kind of a paranoid person, knowing someone was obsessively keeping track of me for who knows how long, freaked me out. The next thing she pulled was trying to seduce my boyfriend. It was an absolutely useless attempt that only made him uncomfortable. He told me about it right away. What was her plan there? Did she hope to tell me he cheated and wait for me to break up with him? Why would I want her after that? Well, that didn't work out for her. She tried hitting on 3 of my other friends. None of them took the bait. She ended up dating one of my former housemates for a while, but made sure to send me messages while they were together, letting me know she'd rather be with me. No thanks. Lily made sure to stay in my life the whole time I was at university. There was a time when I tried to pull away from her and she ended up starting rumors about me and damaging a career opportunity I'd put a lot of work into. I don't know what else she did behind my back, but it made me realize it was safer to let her think she was part of my life while ignoring her rather than doing something that would cause her to get angry. After I graduated, Lily still wanted to spend time together, but I knew I don't have to now. I make excuses about work and barely talk to her after that point. I almost entirely stopped posting on social media that I knew she knew about. Of course, she didn't give up that easily. She tried to start conversations, asked me to meet up with her, attempts I usually ignored. I didn't like to think she was still tracking me online, but she probably was. I don't know, but she'd occasionally reference things I mentioned online somewhere she shouldn't have known about. The last time we had a real conversation, she sent me a message out of nowhere. We hadn't spoken at all in months, and we hadn't talked about anything serious in much longer than that. Thinking about the conversation still makes my skin crawl, but I'll summarize what happened. At first, she asked me some questions about how long I knew I was queer. I told her some basic stuff, the kind of thing I'd tell anyone who asked. Then she changed the subject. She started talking about how would I feel about her if she was a boy, about wanting to be a boy for me. The messages quickly became fetishistic. She went into plenty of detail about fantasies she had of the two of us. Again, we were not friends at this point. We'd never been especially close, at least not from my perspective. We had barely spoken for years. I can't imagine sending messages like that to even a close friend, let alone someone you barely know. I tried telling her not to pull this crap with me, but she decided to change tactics. She sent a photo of herself followed by a bunch of messages, maybe 4 or 5 a minute, way too fast for me to reply before the next one arrived, basically quoting back what I told her about myself in my past earlier. She was telling me these things as if they had happened to her. She was role-playing as me. The worst part was that she seemed to believe it was real, that those things actually had happened to her, even when she was quoting me word for word. Things I'd told her only hours before were now her life. It was like she was trying to absorb my history, to take it over, to make my life part of her. Yeah, I didn't talk to her again after that. I ignored future attempts she made to talk to me, and I eventually silently deleted her from the inactive social media, which was her only real way of contacting me. I really thought she might finally move on. A few days ago, she sent me a friend request. It's sitting there unanswered, but because I know if I delete it, she'll only send in another one. Lily and I met nearly 12 years ago. This story is just the highlights, and even then, it's only the stuff I know about for sure. A lot happened behind my back, I know it did. So, girl who spent 12 years obsessing over me, fetishizing me, stalking me, and harassing me. Let's not meet again. The fantasy life you built for the two of us in your head is the only place you'll be seeing me anytime soon. I was a kid, home alone, and a fake Girl Scout cookie salesman wouldn't leave. Years ago, when I was 11 years old, I was staying home alone with only my little brother, who was 7. At that time, it was only about 9 p.m., dark and pouring rain. We are reading in our room, right next to the front door with a big window and open blinds. That's when I hear the front doorbell ring, followed by knocking. I thought my parents had arrived. Strange though that they didn't use the garage with their keys. I looked outside to see their car. Nothing but rain. As I approached the door, I hear a man's voice that was not my father's yell through the torrent. Would you like some cookies? Or some Girl Scout cookies? I'm shocked at this, considering the weather and time of day. Saying nothing, I checked the peephole and peered through the side window, only to see it was not a father with his girl as I expected. My heart dropped. Standing there was just a fully grown man, maybe in his late 50s, no box of cookies in sight, soaking on my doorstep. I remember the gut-wrenching feeling of having to check the locks while he was right on the other side. For sure, he heard this. The 2 locks were the only thing separating myself and brother from a potential monster. He continued to knock and mention his cookies. As I considered calling the cops, that's when I remembered the blinds were open in my room, where my brother was, with the light on. As I turned the corner into the doorway, I see the man carefully peering into our window, possibly eyeing my brother, distracted in his book. My heart was pounding now as I began to panic. In a move that took all of my willpower, I quickly turned off the light and ran over to the window to close the blinds, in full view of the man. As fast as I could, I double-checked all the locks in the house, closed all the blinds, and told my brother to go hang out in one of the big closets in the interior of the house, no windows. I didn't tell him what was going on, so he wouldn't be frightened. And for some reason, I never did call the cops or my parents. I just waited in the hallway until he left. Still thinking about it gives me shivers that so many things could have just gone wrong that night. My worst fear since is a stranger getting to the unlocked door before I do.